Okay, Jeugenen. Jeugenen.
Yeah, nah, good luck. Now I hear
Jeugenen, can you hear us?
Yeah, now I hear
Jeugenen.
I hear you.
Jeugenen.
Yeah.
Oh, someone wants to say I can live up to you. Jeugenen, how you doing?
I had a feeling you'll be there. You should come to base and recommend them more often.
Hear what the uncle says? Hear what the uncle says? You come to base and recommend more.
They used to come often, but now we got to go.
He's coming in. I don't see him.
Hello? Testing?
I'm not really computer savvy. Very not into it.
Carrots. Where's carrots? Lost himself in the woods.
So he took the job there, whatever. And,
How long ago?
in summer.
Wow.
He lives in Waterbury.
Oh, good job.
Lived in Waterbury for 12 years, 13 years.
What was he doing there? There. Maybe the
Headed up
cheers.
the trail. There's a lot of politics with him and Calvin.
You gotta take a walk now.
How far are you parked?
Picked his
Corner
family
of
up.
every line.
Time you still parked in the driveway,
It's a
Time?
big move.
You driving to his car, he has some cheers.
No,
My brother,
no.
my son, he'll drive. He's parking the driveway.
Get him on the phone.
I have to do it right now.
Get him on the phone.
Very good, very good. My son-in-law said he went there once already. It's a barbecue or something. For Chayel, he said there was no Fabrengen in town. He heard that the Heimish has Fabrengen for Chayel, so he went there. It was very nice.
Good, very good. The Lubavitcher community lives in the same community, or it's further out?
It's right there.
It's right there too. I know the young Israel.
Since 1970.
I know the young Israel's right around the corner.
Right, Israel's right around the corner. Israel's beautiful. The Heimish is nice. They have a nice
One of
house.
my friends from the country, he's from the founders over there.
Young Israel.
There's a lot of money, and he's
A lot of money.
I don't think so. I think there's a few people that have. I think most people are very
Right. There's a few houses that there. Like this. This is
It's a whole new community.
This is the Chabad community. There's a big street, and here's the
Israel.
here's the young Israel, there's the Hamish. This whole neighborhood, the houses became expensive because the from moved it.
I heard
So
they're building
now-
a new development.
Now some of them are moving to the Chabad place. The Chabad
Cheaper?
is very cheap. Chabad is
With the big homes over there.
the thing is that by the throne, a couple of guys built themselves like mansions.
In the new area, but the new lots over there.
Right, the
Yeah.
lots. But the
They're not
Chabad,
expensive. They're 400. Get a huge house.
or 500, but the Chabad you get for 200,
But
50.
there's tiny houses probably.
There's I just saw the house, the principal in the school, he just bought it,
Yeah.
325, and there's 5 or 6 bedroom, full ceilings, it's very nice.
Yeah.
325. The Chabad neighborhood is much cheaper.
I paid $770 for this.
They wanted 760. He insisted 760.
No. She went to the 820. I said, I'm not going to bargain with you. I'm making you a one-time offer. 770. Take it or leave it.
Same with me.
Really?
Yeah.
770?
After that, I tried to bargain. I said 770.
I was also thinking that it was from 820, whatever it was, to 770. It's not a huge difference. It's 50,000. But
My rebate now, the price was 920.
Oh, hey, that's a nice job.
I said that.
For some blanket.
Even then, good. 920 was not bad. They didn't know what to do by listening to
I like your house. It's very, very old. It has like a cabin. Look.
Right.
Is it?
Like, it's called something. Arts and crafts. It's called whatever.
It's very so I know I'd rather talk about it.
Even at that time, it was not bad. I said no. I insisted 770.
How much did they ask?
920.
He said 770.
You got a better deal.
So after that, I tried to be a chacham. I said, "Oh, but you said it was a special number."
Listen. He learned, he dedicated. He was a wild kid. He dedicated himself to learning. He was like 19. House, Rav House.
Where?
I didn't pay him everything.
Wrestler?
No. He used to come to Waterbury every day.
He doesn't seem like a Hasidish. I guess it's appreciating it. Yeah.
Oh, that's good now.
You go beer?
He was
Yeah.
Presiding. We have to make the connection.
Who's living there? Your
My son-in-law, my oldest daughter.
son-in-law is living there.
He's a really nice guy.
Dad, Lubavitch's shul there?
Yeah, sure.
So why didn't they make a thing? Why didn't they make a?
The Lubavitch community is there, the first one there.
So why didn't they make a? Whatever.
Why did the Chabad make it?
Yeah, at that time.
I'm telling you, they're all into COVID.
Like the whole Houston is. Yeah.
Really into it. There was one guy who was really upset that I was in the next friend. Says he's coming from Brooklyn, terrible. They're walking without masks, sitting not 6 feet apart. I tested antibodies like through the roof. Numbers were like, but they go down.
Yeah. Remember, I reached out to you about it.
I feel a bit left out. Even Nusi got it.
I wouldn't feel left out. I wouldn't wish it on anybody.
Even Nusi got it.
What do you want? XL? What's the XL?
Thank you.
Yeah, pass me.
Gonna go shop.
This gosh,
Which one?
the Signet.
Signet's supposed to be good.
Yeah.
You don't like it?
Not bad. First time having it.
Your first time having Signets?
Yeah.
You open the bottle now?
Yeah, open it.
You never had it before? You had it by me.
Do that?
Yeah.
Depends on.
Definitely.
Shmulik was here before. He says he's going to the aisle.
Yeah. Shmulik?
Yeah.
I went
He
on
came to you
Friday.
first? He came to you?
I went on Friday since I went in there at 4:00, so there was no line.
Is this like Gimel Thomas? It's ending to go.
Why, you
I
tried?
got
That's a
home
big
at
moment.
4:56.
And we're going there
I didn't
midnight.
get the memo.
I was lucky, otherwise I would have been parked somewhere and I would have to walk for an hour or something too. Every time it doesn't matter how early I get up, I say I'm going to the oil today, I'm not fasting all day. I'm getting up early.
Instead of east, they wrote east.
It doesn't matter what time I get up, I never walk out the oil before 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock.
Still by FedEx.
No matter what it is.
The thing goes to someone's house. Imagine getting back like that. Lucky day.
It's not about that set. I'm learning a mindset, and I learn another mindset. And as long as it's I don't know what it is. It's like the day goes, and then all of a sudden, gute Woche. A gute Woche.
So you gonna wash? How you gonna wash?
No, we can move in outside. Nusi, your father gets sit right here. I can move. Nusi, bring in another chair. I can move. No. Sit right here.
What happened?
L'chaim. Simcha mezetzich. Taka Gesundheit. Yeah. So Malava Malka, we have to start with a Chassidish Maisa. L'chaim. Amen. He said the three things about the Maisa. It's Motzei Shabbos, about the Baal Shem Tov, and it's a Sgula for Parnosa. And the Rabbeim said it's three lavdavkas. Doesn't have to be only the Baal Shem Tov, doesn't have to be only Motzei Shabbos, and it must be only about the Baal Shem Tov. But it's a health. It's a story that involves the Baal Shem Tov, and it's a Motzei Shabbos, and it's a Sgula for Parnosa, and we're in Nusi's house. It's not Stama Inyan. It's all the years. I'm here 15 years, and I always said, Malava Malka should be in a house. It's Inyan Ruchni, as that Chassidish Malava Malka is in a house. It brings Hatzlocha. It's a special Inyan. So tonight we're making Malava Malka not in shul. We'll make it in the house. The Eibusha Helfen should be a lot of brocha for Nusi and a lot of brocha for everyone of us. But Techech Klal Yisrael. Like I mentioned this morning, that the Rebbe. Friday, a shliach told me this, that the Rebbe was passing by 770, the early years. Rabbi Yudel Prinsky, his father, if he asked him, how are the main things going in life? So he looked. The Rebbe said, that Yonim Ikrim is gesunte Kinder und gute Shidduchim. So loosely translated is nachas of kids, but them is poshe gesunte Kinder. The kids should be healthy, begashmis, beruchnis. We should make good shidduchim. L'chaim. So the story is like this: there was the 1927 Tafresh Pezayin, and the Frierdiker Rebbe was at a Sudas Purim. That was like the height of the tension in the life of the Frierdiker Rebbe. A short time later, he was arrested.
Was the Sikha just
that was the Sikha was Purim Cotton. This was already after. This is already Purim Godel. It's like it was mamish, and but people wonder why Chabad takes a lot of l'chaim. You have to look a little at the history of Chabad to understand why it was so important to take a lot of l'chaim.
L'chaim is an
So we ready Chassidish Fabrengen. Before I get to the story, you should know that l'chaim does pilei ploim. Pasha the Pashas. My Zayda was already over the age of 100, and he used to feel like. And the only way, my grandmother used to, when he was young, used to hide the l'chaim things. He used to get drunk, and she used to hide the l'chaim.
but his drunkenness was
and then. After he was already over the age of 100, and he was like Shvat, and and there was no way to get him. What's it called? The only thing in the world was to give him a l'chaim, And then he'd become Lebedik. She used to, so it was like funny. All her life she used to fight with him, Haidamashke. And then after he was 100 years old already, she was bringing him l'chaim. He should drink. So I was telling my kids tonight. I have a friend Mendy Khan. So he had the story. The Zayda was organizing a beautiful event for Yud Shvat. And the Rebbe was into it. The Rebbe then in Israel, there was the Reshet. There was schools, the Reshet Oli Yosef Yitzchak, which was really for Israeli kids, not Haredi kids, Israeli kids, that they wanted that they should, a lot of kids that happened to have been Niskarav to Yiddishkeit or warmed up through the Reshet. Anyway, the Rebbe wanted that Yud Shvat was angeknackt, they should make a kenes or something. He worked really hard and was on a Matzah Shabbos, and he felt really sick. So he went to the hospital, and they took X-rays, and they told him that he has a big stone in the kidney. So they scheduled an operation for the next day. Today you don't need operation. Today they do laser, and they break up the stone. But in the meantime, they said they couldn't do that. They do it the next day. In the meantime, so as a prep for the surgery, they did another whatever test, X-rays, whatever, and they said, some of the machine is broken. So they took him to a different machine. They said that something happened, and he was also feeling better. Anyway, they couldn't find the stone. So again, the guy Naheim, he's feeling good. They can't find the stone. His parents-in-law came back, and they said it was at Dvar Pella. They were Motzah Shabbos Yichidus by the Rebbe, and all of a sudden the Rebbe picked up his eyes, and he said, "Was macht Edom?" So they said, "Which Edom?" So he said, "Itche Gansburg." So the Rebbe said, "It's sich stam angestrengt. Fühlt sich nicht gut. Feeling good." So they didn't understand, like, what, you know. So then he understood that the Rebbe took out his stone. But I was telling my kids tonight that I had a kidney stone a couple of years ago, and it was taka. It wasn't fun.
Carrots?
Huh?
How many carrots?
And it wasn't fun. It was taka not fun.
Same thing happened with Rabbi Bogomilsky. The Rebbe had a Fabrengen, I think. The Rebbe told him, "You got to make a l'chaim, stand up, make a l'chaim." And he said, while he was standing up, making a l'chaim for the Rebbe, the kidney stone passed.
Oh, so I have it just as good. My Zayda said, I'll come to your house at Fabrengen. It was Hey Tavis. He came to my house, and we had a Fabrengen, and he kept on insisting I have to drink more and more and more. So I kept on drinking and drinking and drinking. And then you got to, after you drink a certain amount, there's somewhere you have to go. And that's it. There was no more kidney stone. It was flushed away. It was flushed away with the l'chaim. Yeah, flushed away with the l'chaim. So you see what it says. Malach b'chol can't get rid of this kidney stone, but genom l'chaim Fabrengen, and gegangen and got flushed out with the l'chaim. Anyway. L'chaim. The Take, what's Achsidish of Fabrengen, Kenufton, Kemalach Mechol, Nishtufton, that we should give a bracha to each other, that the koyach of Yud Shvat should go into us, and Take, there should be atzloche in every one of us, Take, allen yon mikrim, gesunde Kinder, nachgesunde Kinder, machen Take, gut shidduch, L'chaim. Nusi, it's obsessed. Lebedik song your father likes.
First, I want to say I was by toilet.
Oh, sure. First, this is
Was ein Mann in Kronheitz. His in-laws used to live in Chicago. The in-laws invited him for Pesach in Chicago. He went to the Rebbe, asked the Rebbe what to do. The Rebbe said, sit in the Agoda, Ashta Acho, Yishon Abo Ba'ar, tell you blab do. Yishon Abo Sidan Yisrael. Wow. Okay, Rebbe, I want to say something also. Weil Chachom in Metaken gewesen, als Chazor Sashatz, קורא להם זיעות שמדבורך ובשמו אינו עומד. רואים זה רבונון, אף ידע עין העולם זוג. Danken dem Eibischter dafür, der bald viele muss moizi. Danken dem Eibischter, da bin allein dankend. Danke, I want to thank my son.
Well, thank you for coming.
Nusi.
Doesn't make it here very often.
I want to thank them. I want to get everybody here to come for the market. I want to say one very, very important thing. And then Matoy Manoim, Sheves Achim Gam Yachad. Then Matoy Manoim, Sheves Achim Yachad. What you need the Gam? Gam is a ribu. The oil sits together. Market, Fabrengen. Kim Taub the Rebbe alive from oil. This is the Gam. The Rebbe is coming with us together.
Hold it.
The Rebbe. So my man Melis Yoshef Baklal Israel bringing Mashiach Bekor Mamash.
Amen. Amen.
The Rebbe's right there on the wall.
Okay.
No, what's this? Your father has a Levitic song he likes.
My father's favorite song is Gata Ramaz.
L'chaim. Still going to get to the story of the Baal Shem Tov, but before we get to that, I was discussing with my brother the other day at Bar Pella that sing to me, and Tavshin Lamed Ches, that Rebbe had a heart attack. Two things that you noticed the year before, that first, the year before the Rebbe said that he wanted to print Tofresh Ayin Beis. My modem, do you remember that Snowball story? So the Rebbe said, you were in 770? You were in 770 then?
I think that was the 770, but I didn't see the architect. It wasn't the man, maybe. I think he went to the room, right?
Yeah.
Went to the room.
Yeah, they went right away up to the room.
Yeah.
But
I used to walk to the store.
used to walk this to
Took
Nusi to the Kosher Brocha?
I went to Shani Mikveh. I never went to Kasai. It was too late at night.
No, for Kosher Brocha. You took
All
for Kosher
the
Brocha?
time. Sure. Those little plastic bottles. We used to put it in all the cakes and everything.
I used to go. Somebody told me.
Hey, okay, is it okay?
Went down this.
Is it okay?
Somebody called the Rebbe.
Who ordered it?
He said, Akonas Nefoshes. The Rebbe said, that's Akonas Nefoshes.
So the Rebbe that year before Lamed Ches spoke a lot about the project of Mashpim. So in Chabad, from the days of the Alter Rebbe, there was a concept that there should be a Mashpia, that everyone should have their personal Mashpia.
Leipzig has a Mashpia.
Huh?
Leipzig has a Mashpia.
Yeah?
We're talking about the Mashpia today.
You
You remember? You said you Mashpia. I said, well, which area do you come from?
Well, those Mashpim Yeshua.
Anybody listen?
He had a nice curse from a good. He's a good fetcher.
The Rebbe that year made a very big thing of the mashpiyim. My brother pointed out to me that you see right before the Rebbe had the Chav Zayin Adar, also that year the Rebbe spoke a lot about mashpiyim. So it's a psaloi dover who you see that before the Rebbe's heart attack and before the stroke, a few months before, the Rebbe spoke a lot about the idea of mashpiyim. The Rebbe wanted that every Lubavitcher Chosid should have a mashpiyah. It says in Beferish in the Mishnah, Asay l'chor Rav, before Knei l'chor Kover. Asay l'chor Rav. At the Fabrengen of Shvat, Tavshan Lamed Zayin, the Rebbe asked the question, what's the pshat? Why is it that in Chabad it's called a mashpiyah? You must have a mashpiyah. The Mishnah says, Asay l'chor Rav. Asay l'chor Rav. So why didn't in Chabad, why isn't it called a Rav? Like in the world, Chabarov, Chabarebe. In Chabad, there's no such thing as Aruva Rebbe. There's a mashpiyah. Why? Why did the Alter Rebbe coin this trade a mashpiyah? Why a mashpiyah? What's the word of mashpiyah? Rebbe gave a biur nifla. It was a long Fabrengen. I as a kid, I used to go to Fabrengens. I had a mokum kavua since Tavshin Mem Aleph. So I was a very young kid. But my father, Baruch Hashem, forced me to stay at Fabrengen. I couldn't go out to play Kugelach, go on the Shishol. My father would turn around to make sure I'm still there. If I asked no SM bench, nothing. The kids used to play the SM bench, was give Lebedik. No, my father, Baruch Hashem, because of my father, I was able to be at a lot of Fabrengens. And I used to look out on the clock, it should be after 12. Because then every hour after 12 meant that you come next day to Yeshiva an hour later. So
that was the deal, huh?
Yeah. I loved the long Fabrengens. The longer it went, the better it was. So this is a Fabrengen, Tavshin Lamet Zayin. Long Motz Shabbos Fabrengen. The Rebbe gave a biur nifla. And why the Alter Rebbe called it Shkoyach? Why the Alter Rebbe called it mashpiyim? The Nekuda, the beer is like this, that there is, like for example, Moshe Rabbeinu. It says when he gave a smicha to the 70 skenim, it says it was that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't lose anything. On the other hand, for example, when Moshe Rabbeinu gave to Yeshua, Mehoit Chalov, it doesn't say that it wasn't chaser. For example, Adam Rishon gave from his life to David the Melech. Adam Rishon was supposed to B'yom ha'achol chimimenu Mois Thomas. Yom ha'shakadosh baruch hu zeh l'sham. He's supposed to live 1,000 years. Apparently, he lived 930. What happened with the balance of the 70 years? He gave it to David the Melech. So you don't say loy chaser mimenu klum. Sometimes when you give, you are chaser. Sometimes when you give, you are loy chaser. For example, we say that the Torah came down from heaven. It was Torah is like a mime yordam mokum gavayel mokum namuch. So we don't say it's not chaser. It is chaser in heaven. The Eibishter says to the Malachim, we have to go down. Torah loy b'shamayim. We don't pass him the way the Torah is in the Shamayim. A whole story about Rabba Bar Nachmoni, and the way we pass him like him, because he was alive. So the Torah is not anymore in Shamayim. Torah is here. It is nechser. So there is a way to. So the Rebbe says that there is the idea of oir and the inyan of shefa. Explaining Chassidus, the Mekubalim didn't like calling about godly revelation shefa. They like to call it oir. Oir ein sof. Chassidus we all talk about godly light. We never talk about shefa. But the Mekubalim like the term shefa. And the Chassidus has a whole pilpul. What's the difference between shefa and oir? And why the Mekubalim like better oir? And the Nekuda is that oir is loy nechsa klum. When light just like goes from here to there, it's not nechser in the first place. Shefa is like water. Water going in makom gavayim makom namuch. It's not there anymore. Now it's a makom namuch. So, but the Eibishter, it's if you say that the Eibishter is mashpia to the world, that means the Eibishter gets preoccupied. That's not true. The Eibishter does not get preoccupied. Therefore, the Mekubalim like better oil. However, when you are a mashpia, so the kenzat arov is kenzat a mashpia. So this is the biur nifla from the Rebbe, and I'm saying in my words, arov means that the hota groisa chiddush, the sheina chiddush to sagen, gelernt aktzos mit anasivas, and he has a nice chiddush to say, but he's not lowering himself, he's not wasting his time because he had the moed the chiddush, so he's not nechser mimenu klum. So that's oir. What's shefa? mashpia. He spends 2 hours or 3 hours Fabrengen with another Yid about why he should date a Jewish girl, not date a shiksa. And none of this discussion he could now write up and print in his next sefer. There's nothing, you know what I mean? This is mashpia. That's called mashpia. Mashpia means when he has to lower himself, and it is nechser. Oyer means it's nothing chaser. The sun, segeitan, is like an expression. Says haze, and the cat steckt da raus the zung some zun. You know, like sometimes someone gets by, you know, gives you like a little bit of ziddle. So some people take it personally. Sometimes you have to realize that, you know, it doesn't matter if the cat put out his tongue to the sun because the sun is shining. You know what I mean? It's no big deal. The cat starts gestuckt the zung zum zun. It's loy nechser klum. Oyer is nothing. Oyer doesn't nechser. It's a mener min lener. But shefa means that maim is yerdem makom gavayel makom namuch. So the Rebbe says like this. That is a klal in Poiskim, that Poiskim acharonim have to be mefarish yois. For example, if the Mishnah doesn't clarify something, a Mara doesn't, or Adishan something, say, if he didn't clarify it, it doesn't mean that, you know, just because he didn't say it, no daya. But acharonim have to clarify themselves more. The Alter Rebbe made it clear. When it says, asay l'charav, you should know that you don't have to be a rav to another yid, that you're sitting in your place, I'm not going to waste any of my time, any of my energy. If he can understand the Tosfos the way I understand is Gevaldik, and otherwise, whatever, let him learn how to understand the Tosfos. No, said the Alter Rebbe, we have to be mashpim. The Alter Rebbe ausgeteilt. Was hat the Mishnah gesagt, dass sei lecharav? The days of the Mishnah was good. It could be a Rav, a Rebbe, or Shishiva, sehr good. But now what's required is that we should all be mashpim. We should be mashpim and we should have mashpim. It's not enough to say, oh, I love this guy, I listen to his shiurim, zeh geschmack. No. You're going to call him and you're going to tell him, listen, Nusi, can I spend a little time with you? Come over and we'll talk a little bit, tell you what's going on. And you'll tell me where you think I should go in Avodas Hashem. So that's the Indian that the Alter Rebbe always geteilt. So that's a mashpia, nicht a rav. A rav could be oil. Mashpia is shefa. That's what we need. We need to have a mashpia. We need to have a mashpia, and we also need, in other words, not like the mashpia in yeshiva that you were talking about. We need to have a mashpia. He doesn't want that mashpia. We need to have a mashpia and we need to be a mashpia. L'chaim. Ay ve'yato marto ite ve'tevima yato marto ite ve'yetevima. I need to deal with that. That's cool. Marta, let me see. Beautiful. It's a blitz. Kobe, good to Rabbi heard in his room, he gave a little after the heart attack. He spoke. Have you ever heard it? I heard it a few times. Yeah. Should we play it for the Badala? I want to play it. I have to be very inspired. Yeah, small piece. Yes. Yeah. That's potatoes. Okay. Yeah. Moishi l'chaim. Man soll matzliach sein und sein mashpiyim. It's good. You brought the kids there Friday night. The basement Achamendel is a chelik of.
Rabbi, they might come tomorrow morning. I spoke to them.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you made that? That's me.
There now.
I gotta go to now?
Yeah. Well, no.
Full night.
Yeah, we're just gonna go I see this.
It's probably a lighter.
It's an iPad.
Not more.
Kids.
Not everyone.
About Luke's grandfather.
Oh yeah.
Look, back in the day.
Wow.
Yeah.
L'chaim. Okay, let's talk about the story. We said Motzei Shabbos, Baal Shem Tov, School of Parnasa. So it was in the height of the tension in the house of the Alter Rebbe. I'm sorry, the Frierdiker Rebbe. In 1929, it was Purim Godel, and Take, a short time later, he was arrested, and it took a lot of l'chaim. The Bitcher, the Masmid, was a very choshev chosid, and he was already after plenty of l'chaim. He asked the Frierdiker Rebbe if he can tell a story. So they said, "Can tell na Meise?" Frierdiker Rebbe darf nicht kein Meises. But he was burning. He wanted to tell it. So he said, the Maisa is Nagei the Rebbe. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said, the Maisa is the man Nagei Veisachshem. Okay. Okay. So the stories that are pertaining to me, I already know. I don't have to hear stories. Okay. Towards the end of the Fabrengen, so the Frierdiker Rebbe turned and said, the Rebbe, was denn nicht erzählt der Meise? So he said, but he didn't want to tell the story. What happened was he already sobered up, and he didn't feel comfortable talking in front of the Frierdiker Rebbe. So he didn't tell the story. But afterwards, it was a few months later, and the Frierdiker Rebbe was arrested, and the Chassidim were Fabrengen, and they in the Malachayim, and they begged him he should tell the story. So he said that the story they wanted to tell was like this: that Alter Rebbe showed up at the house of Reb Nochem Chernobyl, and Reb Nochem was very happy. Reb Nochem was makabel ponim to Alter Rebbe, and he said, "How was I zoicha that you came to visit me?" The Alter Rebbe said, "Do you remember what our Rebbe said? What the Maggid had gesagt?" He said, "Yeah, sure, I remember." So the Maggid said, and I think he said that the Maggid said that the Baal Shem Tov told him that Mashiach is going to come either from his oldest Talmud or from his youngest Talmud. So the Alter Rebbe said, "Why do we need Vodaf Maranginis Vekas? Come on, shidduch. If we make a shidduch between each other, so then we don't have to have a suffix. It's the oldest Talmud, the youngest Talmud.
The oldest one should make a shidduch with the youngest one."
Yeah. And since Reb Nochem was, I guess, the oldest, from the oldest, the Alter Rebbe was the youngest, so we'll make a shidduch. So Reb Nochem said, "Good idea." And it was all the Eneklach lived together, and the babies were in one room. So he said, "Come inside and pick a baby for yourself."
Good old fashioned.
So the Alter Rebbe, there's no shidduch crisis over here, you know what I mean? So the Alter Rebbe went from Vigela to Vigela, and he touched the heads, and they came to one baby. He said, "Oh, this one, he wants this baby." And he said, "Should be a shidduch for his granddaughter, Tvaraleya, the daughter of the Mittler Rebbe." Okay. Mit gemacht Tanoim, mit gesagt Mazel Tov. That was it. The babies were engaged already. Now easy street. Yeah. Now they just have to grow up, so they can technical things, so they can get married. So now the Alter Rebbe came home and said that he told the Mittler Rebbe, "You should know that your daughter Dvarley is engaged." Okay, so
it touched heads.
It's a big squeeze.
So now, what happened was that there was the Reb Nochem had already passed away, and one day Reb Baruch, the Einikol, the Baal Shem Tov, also he came to Chernobyl, and he said he wanted to make a shidduch with him. There's a few good sauce in the story. This little kid already grew up, and he was like a wild little kid, and he was like brilliant. They say that a Baruch came into the house and he met a little kid. He said, "Wie heißt die?" So he said, "Yaakov Yisrael." So from one of I stood, I know him as Yaakov Yisrael. So he said, "I saw it in heaven, the same place where I see that your name is Reb Baruch." Wow. So that kid said like this. He said to himself right away, "I'd like to have this kid for one of my Einiklach." So he asked the Motel at Chernobyl, maybe we can make a shidduch. I said, sure. He said, there was a kid over there, Yaakov Yisrael. He said, he's long engaged already. He's too late. So he said, no, you can break that shidduch. Big deal. They're not married. And break the shidduch. So he said, I'm going to go to my father's grave and I'll ask my father. My father made the shidduch. So he went to his father's grave. He came back. He said, no, my father told me, this shidduch is bechosa, is boruchel. Das is hecha vi alle boruchels. This shidduch is hecha vi alle boruchels. That I have to keep the shidduch. So the taka, the shidduch was kept. And as soon as the boy grew up, he got married to the daughter of the Mittel Rebbe. The chasna was in Liadi. It was still in the lifetime of the Alter Rebbe. It was 2 years before the Alter Rebbe passed away. And Taka, they got married. This Rabbi Yaakov Yisrael was later a very good friend to his to Dvar Leah's cousin, the Tzemach Tzedek, and they learned B'chavrusa many years together. And they were both Geoinim and Tzadikim. I remember there's a story in a Fabrengen that the Rebbe told about this Rabbi Yaakov Yisrael Cherkasser, who happens to have a lot of Einiklach now and that live in Flatbush, because who the family that is Rabbi Yaakov Yisrael Cherkasser had a grandson, the Horensteipler going.
Is that
Horensteipler?
You mean Reb Mordechai?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And the Horensteipler wrote this, many Sfonim, among them Sfonim on Hezedus. He wrote Chibur Latara on the Alter Rebbe on Hilchas and Tilas Yadayim. And he was going Otz Mamish. He has a lot of Einiklach that live here in Flatbush. What are the names? Tversky.
He has a shul.
Yeah. Exactly. They're Einiklach. They're all Einiklach of the Horensteipler. Anyway, so Rabbi Yaakov Yisrael Cherkasser, he was very sharp. The Rebbe tells the story that him and the Tzemach Tzedek were chavrusas, they used to learn, and there was a person, the Beis Medrash, that had these demyonis about having. Wanted to have Gilei Elyon, and he was telling there was a two younger light that were very young, and he was already an older person. That he saw in Sfonim that if you fast 40 days, you're Zeich Gilei Elyon, and he already fasted 40 days. He wasn't Zeich Gilei Elyon. So the Tzemach Tzedek and Rabbi Yaakov Yisrael said, we have to do something. Nebuch, this guy is not being Zeich Gilei Elyon. So it was the middle of the night, and they wrapped up in white sheets, and they took a big bucket of water, and they poured it over. They went to the Ezras Noshim, and they poured it over his head, and they screamed out Toher. They changed their voices a little bit, and they said Toher, 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 and then they snuck out of the Ezras Noshim. Next day they came to shul. And a person was Mole Simchis. I have to tell you a story. Last night, I had water that came mamish from Eliyahu was poured over me, and he told me, Toher, Toher, Toher. Just to give you a picture of this. Anyway, so Rabbi Yaakov Yisrael, from his Einiklach, later they married, they married into other Einiklach Alter Rebbe, and the Frierdiker Rebbe really comes from. The Frierdiker Rebbe really comes from those, right? It's from the descendants. So basically, what Abitcha Masmid was trying to say something like to the Frierdiker Rebbe. That's what the Frierdiker Rebbe didn't want to hear it. But why did the Frierdiker Rebbe want to hear it at the end of the Fabrengen? So the Meir Aftzin writes in his book, Erdes Bafela, Choshevi, the Meir Aftzin has a lot of children that are shluchim all over the world. He said because at that time the Rebbe walked into the Fabrengen. At that time the Rebbe was in Leningrad, in Petersburg. So because he was just engaged with the Rebbe. So the story is told that one of the Chassidim, Rabbi Kazanovsky, told the story to the Rebbe. And when he got to the end of the story, the Rebbe said, the Rebbe didn't want to hear any more of the story.
Why?
Why? Because the implications of what the story means. So L'chaim, Matzah Shabbos, the Ikad is that the whole Indian of Basa Lagani, yeah, exactly. That Basa Lagani is that the whole avodah is to bring down Taka the Shechina, that there's this, the Maimah starts, that there were 7 Avedas that chased away.
This is the Maimah Rebbe said, right?
This is the Maimah that Rebbe said. And it starts with Basa Lagani Choisikala, the Omer Baba, that Odom Rishon heard the Ekerl Lakim is Halach B'Toichagan, Mehalach Enksiv, Mishalach. He was Mishalach. It should say he heard Kerlim Mehalach. Why does it say Mishalach? Because they added a tough. Because Kofetz ve'ozel, that there were 7 sins that chased away the Shekhinah until the 7th heaven. 7 tzaddikim brought back until Moshe, which is Moshe Ashvim, Kol Hashem Chavivin, and it brings down the Shekhinah Lamata. And the whole thing of the Maimah Bas Lagani is that it's our job to prepare. This is Doir Ashvi, and it's our job to bring the Shekhinah down, to bring a Mashiach Tzidkenu. That's the bottom line. So L'chaim, that every one of us in our avodas Hashem should have a Gula Protis, and this should bring the Gula Klolis, the Klal Yisrael Takat should be a Doir Ashvi that brings down the Shechina Lamata Bar. It's L'chaim. Hine Yamato no Yishev Safir Bam Yochad Hine Yamato Mano Yishev Safir Bam Yochad Ram Loka in a matter, oh, Zero people. Exactly. Where's your We were learning last week. Sunday night we always learn a sikha, and the Rebbe's learning of Pshuta Shemikra is it's a whole world of its own. There's so many meforshim. It's probably about 400 meforshim Rashi. But the Rebbe has this methodology of how you learn Pshuta Shemikra, Pi Rashi. So we had a Rashi in this week's parsha that Rashi asks, how come the Yidden? Why was it important for the Yidden to take the Korban Pesach and take it 4 days early? And Rashi is a long answer, a whole thing that the Yidden did. What kind of schus the Yidden have? So the Yidden at Erem Ve'erya, you're naked, you're beer. The Yidden didn't have a schusim, so she gave them 2 schusim, Dam Pesach, Dam Mila. And the Yidden were connected to Avodah Zorah, Mishchut Chulchem Tzoin. The Rashi doesn't give an answer to this question. It's such a long Rashi. When you learn Chitas, by the time you get to the end of the Rashi, you forgot the question. So, gegangen weiter. But the Meforshim didn't forget the question. They were wondering what was the answer. There's no answer. Oh, mefulful the pshotim, but it's not pshuta shel mikra. That's not what
was the question?
Rashi asked.
You didn't even get to the end.
Rashi asked, why was it that they in the Mitzrayim they needed to take the korban 4 days early? Mikche be'oser, and usually the Korban Pesach you didn't have to buy it 4 days early.
I was making a joke.
So the Nakuda, the answer that the Rebbe gives in Pshat is that of a person, is a smoker, he comes home, he tells his wife, "That's it, I quit. Can make a kiddush. I quit smoking." How long you quit? 15 minutes.
Make a kiddush later.
We'll make a kiddush next week. If a week you're not gonna smoke, we'll make a kiddush. Today I'm telling you, I started being very careful with my health. I took 3 diets in the same day. Let's wait a few days. Let's if you can do 1 diet a day. So if the Yidden Rashi says that the Yidden wore shtufim b'avodah zorah. They were very connected to avodah zorah. Shotuf means they're very connected. Shtufim b'dam, shtufim b'avodah zorah means they were very connected. There's an unfortunate saying which I don't like, but I'm sorry. It's a crystal. You know that when you live in a place, so unfortunately they get connected to the customs of that place. So so the Yidden were in Mitzrayim already 210 years, and they also became ideological vegetarians. We don't kill animals. The Egyptians, the worst crime you could do is to kill an animal. That was the worst crime. There are of Avodah Zarah till today they worship animals. So the Yidden were shtufim b'Avodah Zarah. To them, to kill an animal was the worst thing. They were also tzimchoni. They were also vegetarians, just like their good neighbors, the Egyptians. Now the Yidden should show that the mishchu yedechem ma'avodah zarah chulachem shel mitzvah, that they are not anymore involved in avodah zarah. So if they quickly grab the korban pesach and slaughter it, so yeah, just like by it says by Avram Avinu, Ashlishi, Avram Rashi said that the Eibishter made it slowly. Why? The Eibishter quickly grabbed the sun, and before he could think, I don't know.
Premeditated.
Yeah, exactly. He walked for 3 days. He had plenty of time to rethink it. Because he walked for so many days, so we know that there wasn't just same thing here, that in order to show that the schus that the Yidden have, so there has to be that at least 4 days before, that's a tkufa zman, that they see that they have the sheep in their house and they're telling the Egyptians and their family what's going on, planning to slaughter it in 4 days. So they have time to think about it. There wasn't just, so that will flesh out from them their connection to Avodah Zarah. And that was the pshat, the Nakuda, the pshat that the Rebbe has. But then the Rebbe asks, Rashi, the Rebbe had a style that if Rashi never brings the name of the Bala Memra, unless it was something that's added from it, a Talmud Mamulach, that Rebbe would call it. Maybe a smart Talmud will ask a question, and the Rebbe is going to say, the answer is the name of the Bala Memra. It says, Hoya Masr ben Choresh Omer. Masr ben Choresh always used to say, always. Every day he said this pshat. What kind of language is it? Hoya Masr ben Choresh Omer. So the Rebbe says that where do we find Masr ben Choresh? It says in the Gemara Sanhedrin that you can force the Baldin to go to Bezdin Yofa, to go to a very good Bezdin, a supreme Bezdin, a better Bezdin. So Holach Acher Rebbe Akiva lebnei Brak, Holach Acher Masr ben Choresh leRoimi. Rebbe Akiva made his yeshiva in Bnei Brak, and Masr ben Choresh made it in Roimi. So if you want to build another yeshiva in Bnei Brak, versteh? You want to build another yeshiva in Lakewood, versteh? Or why would you go to Roimi to build a yeshiva in Roimi? So probably there were Yidden there. So a Talmud might ask, Masr ben Choresh, why are you making a yeshiva here? Here's Yidden, Poshta Yidden, why are they in Rome? Why Yidden in Rome? Whatever, business interests. They were not in Rome to B'chadash Chedushay Torah. So if you want to open a yeshiva, open it in Lakewood. A yeshiva you should open up in Bnei Brak. You should open the yeshiva next to the Bakiva's yeshiva. Why are you opening a yeshiva in Roimi? That's used to always say, the Yidden were naked and bare, they had no mitzvahs. So b'meila, but the Yidden really, the Eibishter promise will take them out of Mitzrayim. But fourth, they needed a schus. They needed a schus. So they needed two schusim, the Dam Pesach and Dam Milah, Loita Se and Aseit, Asoras Orla, and Sur Merav Aseitov. They needed two schusim, and that was good enough. You know why I have a yeshiva here in Rome? Not the Machadash Chedushay Torah. Maybe there'll be one Yid. I will influence him to do one mitzvah, and that schus will go out of Golos, will go out of Mitzrayim. That's what the Masr ben Choresh used to say. He always said it because that was his whole motto in life. We'll find that the Rebbe said that my father-in-law, the Frierdiker Rebbe, that was his thing in life. That the Frierdiker Rebbe came to America and he said a sikha. The Frierdiker Rebbe came to America in 1930 and he traveled all over. He tried wherever he could to start yeshivas. I mentioned the other day, we had an old man, Mr. Ginsburg. He was a lawyer. I hope he's doing well because he already retired many years ago. He moved to Florida. And he always used to tell me, oh, when I was a kid, I learned in Achet Tmimim in Pittsburgh. I'm talking about when I came here 15 years ago. This was this guy was an 80-year-old man. He learned when he was a kid in Achet Tmimim in Pittsburgh. He remembered his rebbes. I mean, there were shivas that the Frierdiker Rebbe opened here in America, and where the Rebbe he traveled. He went from town to town. The Frierdiker Rebbe. There's a whole booklet of the sichas that Bikkur Chicago. When he was in Chicago, he was in Pennsylvania. He was in Philadelphia. He went to see the Liberty Bell. The Machabig went to sitzen auf der Benkel was gesetzt in George Washington, and the Frierdiker Rebbe's Taka sat down. And he said something when he saw the Liberty Bell. He said, only someone like me who went through tyranny understands the liberty, understands the mile of liberty. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said a sikha when he came to America. He said, it says kisira oram v'chisisa. When you see a naked Jew, you have to dress him up. Amazet ayid naket on tzitzis on tefillin darf man montan tzitzis darf man montan tefillin. So the area means that the Yid is naked and bearded. That means that the Yid is the levushim is mitzvahs. On mitzvahs, the Yid is naked. He doesn't have any levushim. The levushim are the mitzvahs. So b'meila, when we see a Yid that's iron area, so the Rebbe said that the Frierdiker Rebbe was the Masir ben Choresh of our generation that made sure that if there's a Yid that's naked from mikvahs, that we should get him dressed with a pair of tzitzis and get him dressed with a pair of tefillin. It's just another nekuda that they were sitting tonight at Fabrengen of Shvat, and the Frierdiker Rebbe, before he passed away, the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote a maimer. It was hard for him to talk at that time, and he wrote a maimer on Friday, and he left it on his desk. Shabbos morning, he passed away. It's like the kfis of this year. 71 years of the Istalkus, 70 years of the Nesius of the Rebbe. The Rebbe every year gave a maimer on one chapter of the Frierdiker Rebbe's maimer. He did that 20 years, another 20 years, and now we're on the fourth cycle, learning Ois Yudalef in the maimer Bosalagani. In the Ois, he starts off saying that Isa B'Sefer Shari Ha'oira L'Rabbi Yosef Chikatilya, a whole thing about Midas and Etzoch. Powerful thing about Midas and Etzoch. Why is the Frierdiker Rebbe mentioning Isa b'Sefer Ha'oira l'Rabbi Yosef Jikatilya? He's trying to show you that he knows who's the author of Sefer Ha'oira, Shari Oira. So the Pashtup Pshat is, I mentioned it the other night, is there is a Shari Oira from the Middle Rebbe. So you can see Isa b'Shari Oira. You'll run over to the bookcase of Lubavitcher and you own the whole cause. And you'll take a Shari Oira of the Middle Rebbe. You won't find it there. So he says, no, it's a Shari Oira of Rabbi Yosef Jikatil. Okay, but there must be more of a pshat. Why the Frierdiker Rebbe writes, he said Shari Oira. Shari Oira is one of the primary svarim of Kabbalah. He lived in the generation when the first Hizgalos of Sefer HaZohar. He doesn't even mention Sefer HaZohar by name. And that Arizal held that his Sefer is one of them. After learning the Zohar HaKodesh, his Sefer, he sort of wrote out a lay of the land of the Sfidas, of the 10 Sfidas. He was a Rishon. He was a generation of the Rashba, the Ramban. So, but it's brought, one of the stories that are brought about him, Sefer HaCharedim, is that he said that he was once, he was very sick, and he once saw that when he was sick, he saw that he was in heaven, and they're weighing his chusim against the opposite of chusim. And basically, that's the end. So he said he jumped out of bed and he grabbed the pure tefillin and he put on the tefillin. And the schus of the tefillin pulled the scale into one side, and he immediately felt better, and he had a refuah shleim. So
before that, it was evil.
Yes, he didn't want. Yeah. So I was thinking. We know that the Rebbe had a campaign of certain miftzayim. Who are we to know which tafka these miftzayim? Not mistama. Zicha, the Rebbe knew that these 10 miftzayim, if you're going to grab a yid and you put on with him a period film, that dafka, this is going to make and you get it, you'll influence someone associate to work, and they have a wife and daughter. They're not religious, but you convince them to light a Shabbos candle. This is going to make the change in their life. the Rebbe is gewusst. Wie der Rebbe gewusst? Also der Rebbe gewusst. But we see, huh?
Drizzen told us a story that he put on film to Yid and it became Baal Tshuva and has.
Right, you see, B'Pal Mamish. So, so that was that. That's the diuk. The Rebbe mentioned in the Maimer of Yosef Jikatilia, not only because he was a Choshev and Makubal, and he's a primary source of all, but there's a special story with him that has a shaykhus that you see it. Well, why did Rebbe Taka pick Dafka this campaign to put on film with a Yid? The Rebbe gave us that this is the Ruchnisdik antidote to the spiritual problems that we have in this generation. I was just in Houston, Texas, to visit my son-in-law. The Eibush had geholfen that my wife found tickets that were for $20.20. And then they had a problem with the plane, and we waited. It was nicht gefährlich. It was early.
Push the plane off the.
Yeah, mom is like Spirit Airlines.
Bring your own seat.
No, but it was a shchodesh, and you know it's very hard to dive on a plane. You ask permission down in the back of the plane. So they should go home. The kids went off the plane. They had a good time in the terminal. And when I finished davening in Holland Musaf Machaya, the plane was fixed beside the. But the Vila, we got $50 coupons, so we paid $20.20. And
it cost you 30.
Yeah, it's gefährlich.
It cost them 30.
Yeah. So there's someone in our shul that tells the following story. He says that he moved to Houston, Texas. He was working in a trucking company, and he was not only wasn't religious, but he was anti-religious. But they had two children, so they put them in the Chabad school. Free tuition, can't beat it. So put them into Chabad school. The kids learned about Shabbos. So they said, "Daddy, why don't you come home to make Kiddush?" He used to dafkesh Shabbos. He used to stay at work for many extra hours because it was quiet, and he used to work in the office. But the kids begged him he should come home and make Kiddush. So he decided he's going to make Kiddush. Today he davens a base Menachem Mendel. I met him about 10 years ago, more, maybe 15 years ago, because we used to have our kids used to go on the Jofez bus, and I met him on the corner of J and the E16 in the corner.
What?
And at that time, he was still wearing as a heavy jewelry, and the Vila, the jewelry got lost, and his beard grew in. So because I was in Houston, so I went over to Rabbi Lazarov, Shimon Lazarov, and his wife. And I said, I have regards from you from someone in our shul. They should know that he's from today because of your school. I don't know who you're talking about. Israeli? We have a lot of Israelis that come here. Mrs. Lazarov tells me I have to tell you something. We recently spoke about it. The school is Baruch Hashem growing. We have a lot of kids. And these Israelis is they're impossible. They come here, they don't want to pay a nickel and a dime. They say they don't have money. When they have money, they still don't give a nickel or a dime. We decided that that's it. We don't need them anymore. But it's Hashgacha Pratis. You just came and told me the story. So we're gonna rethink the policy. I thought she stopped telling it to me, but later in the day, my wife saw her and she told her the story and what she said and what her husband said, and it was not some. She was bisrakshus that she just had this conversation with her husband, and they were thinking they're here already from 1970, and then shlichus and plotzach, and enough with these Israelis, but and here they hear the story. They hear the story that the mamish is for mamish. It changed their life. So it's hashgacha pratis. It's hashgacha elyono. So that was the nakuda of Shvat. Kesira Orim v'chesisoi. That we see another yid. It's Orim. That's Orim min ha-mitzvahs v'chesisoi. Maybe shall helfen the taka that the schus that we find another yid the chisisoi that should be mashpia also on us. L'chaim, l'chaim. Yeah. Huh?
The Rav did pause to all these real estate. Who's this guy? Who's the Israeli?
I'll tell you the story.
He makes a lot of noise. Have you heard?
Yes.
Nusi is that small piece of people.
You have a buddy in Houston.
I'll sign the Rav. Yeah, I got it.
Amazing.
There you go.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Everybody is supposed to walk in the comments.
That was a tough thing.
Trust me, we didn't want to go. We're 8 years old.
Trust me,
Walking an hour and a half to try and through Prospect Park. Those days wasn't the prettiest.
But now you have good memories.
Now, yeah, it's unbelievable. I can say it. When you look back, the transplants we gave him for the hard time. 8 years old, you're coming with us.
Baruch Hashem, he insisted.
Hashem's a tough guy.
Hey, mellow that a little. Then he used what? Yeah, down. Yeah. Good. He shaves his head. Yeah. He does the and everything. Big Shabbos day. Yeah, so the Rav is not here. So he gets up. Yeah, so he speaks like that every Shabbos.
He was born when I was
Ay, 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 hey, ay, ay, ay.
Yeah, probably is.
You know the
Chaim, you going to the Oilsen?
I don't know.
Huh?
To be honest, I didn't even know it was. I need to go to the island. I guess I'm not so up to date.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know, but maybe I'm gonna go. I go to Scarsdale tomorrow morning.
You know, I appreciate it.
On the way back, I passed. Mamish passes.
I used to live in Lebanon, man, so we used to have
Me and Moshe go to
the
the
biggest of
Yeah,
the
you wanna go?
Oh, yeah?
and they still travel
Very good
while
experience,
we're
right?
in Lebanon, they still travel.
We tell each other that when you go there, you feel like
But the
it's not
entire year,
stuck.
we
You
were
go to the limits of them. You start thinking, but when you go to the oil,
the testing. Every guy, every shop,
Is that built the oil like? I wasn't sure.
Right. They never built it himself. Yeah, the Rosh Hashiman Torah B'das has a sefer all the Shakmatai you have with the Rebbe, how they built it, it should be no problem for the Rebbe. They built now a fan. Easier
like you said,
drive
painful
in.
memories, but at the same time now, for me, every
Right,
time
if you go by
I
day,
go to Chazon or anything like
drive
that, I
into the main
appreciate it
entrance,
because
and then
I
park
really
your
want to
car right
remember
there,
what
like
it was
the Rebbe
like.
used to. Yeah, good.
You still do that now?
Yeah, coming from the main entrance. What, they open? Not from the side.
Right,
entrance,
right.
the main
Main drive through.
Yeah, drive through. It's like a little. The main road is large.
I don't think his car's he's a big truck. I don't think that's gonna work.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Project to get everyone aware. You know,
I'm not
It
sure.
works, it's fine.
They built now the railings.
And I always, cannot always end up meeting someone I didn't see in years.
Right.
Cannot always.
please.
Of course.
That's the one he doesn't.
Rebbe used to say, Rebbe used to say, every day of the week, give a Rebbe's in this Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, give a Rebbe's for the day. And the second, I saw something.
My uncle,
Father, yeah,
Schmois? Boy or the Schmois?
he had they wanted to kill him. They hired the black guys to kill him. He was a principal in the school
has a beard, father?
Now, yeah.
Oh yeah. He made when the Rebbe used to have Fabrengen,
Torture.
See, he used to show up for Fabrengen. They didn't want him to see. Otherwise,
Monday. Moshe will come to Moshe.
Moshe. The Rebbe used to say that in today's parsha, boy, Sheilaman Revois, Moisai, Eretz, Mitzrayim, Rosh Tovas Ramba. Revois, Moisai, Eretz, Mitzrayim. What's the Rebbe's Rosh Tovas? Yeah. Shane.
yeah, today's. I didn't go into
No.
details.
Chaim, Revois, Moisai, Eretz, the Rebbe's word. Chaim, L'chaim. let's wrap up the Fabrengen. We have to make achlot toiva to make every one of us should have a mashpia, and the taka that we actually talk to the mashpia. That we don't only have a mashpia, because back then the Rebbe wanted that we should have a list of every place where who's the mashpia, who's your mashpia. We should go to the oil and write who's my mashpia, discussing with my mashpia what's going on. I'm taking, so that's what the Rebbe wanted. Even though the brachas and the closeness that the Rebbe has of Chassidim stays the same, but the Rebbe wanted.
Mashpia has to accept to be a mashpia for that person.
Mashpia has to accept, the Makabel has to accept.
Except that all
it's mutual. So every one of us make sure that we that we actually have a mashpia and that we actually talking to our mashpia. And they shall helfen that it shouldn't only be like a Seluch or Rav that's up there, but it should be mashpia, and it should have an effect on us, taka, that the hashpah from mashpia actually goes into us. L'chaim, l'chaim. Ay 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 did it ay 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 did it ay 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 did it ay 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 did it ay 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 did it ay 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 did it ay ay did it ay ay did it ay did it no, come back now, Zimmer. Okay, Nusi. Do you have any wine? Maybe have wine. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to call it.
Question. Wine also by the.
This one is on the table.
The Macadam, the dusky dry wine.
Duck on wine, not a dry wine. A little bit of the wine and a little bit of the picture.
Right.
That's why.
Yeah.
Through the Charas and also by the Shvat. It's always talked about by the fathers. How could a woman have 5 Bechors? Doesn't. We don't go by that.
No, but Rashi says we go by we went all ways.
That's how I wondered.
We went by the mother and went with the father.
Okay, so that's how
Rashi says that we went. That's why the aim by its change. Sometimes.
So why by Yaakov was a whole back and forth? Yosef, Reuven, Shabbos, Reuven.
Right. Some things it goes to the father, some things it goes to them. And look in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, where the first seif talks about which things go with the father and which things go with the mother. Some things go with the father, some things go with the mother.
Actually, was looking for Fabrengen wine. I had a bottle, but it wasn't good.
Right.
I'm sorry.
No. I think right here a whole week.
Yeah.
Give him
Today. Exactly. Yeah.
But Nusi tells me, you know my chavutza? Are you crazy?
I don't know. I know faces.
He's a chaimel.
You know, we're in the basement of the Shiva.
That's a good question. I know he learns with a fine. Then he learns with the.
Fruit handler is hard to miss. You can tell them by their face.
Huh? No, great.
Oh, you can't be Messiah with me, huh? You can't be Messiah.
But you can answer.
Because I'm in the middle of eating my mouth too. Okay. If I can answer, yeah, okay.
Rabbi Simon mentioned Yishei Badoina Baberach Matva Dalum Beshus Maronam Rabonam Rabbi Sai Nevorech Eliheinu Shachalnu Mishalo Baruch Eliheinu Shachalnu Mishalo Yuftu Vaychayinu Baruch Poisei Yachas Yudech Mazbiel Chol Cherotzim Baruch Ato Adinoi Azones Akol. Kakos v'chalta v'savota v'rachtas Adonai lach al haaretz hatoy v'ashinos loch Baruch ato Adonai al haaretz v'al hamazon. V'nei Yerushalayim mirakodesh b'mheida v'yameinu Baruch ato Adonai b'nei v'rachamav Yerushalayim amen. Baruch HaGebre Shiftach B'Adoinu v'Adoinu Miftach Baruch Ato Adinu Eloheinu Melech Haolam Boirei Pri Hagofen.
People selfie here.
What happened? It's frozen. What happened?
No, it's seltzer.
You see a lot of smakotim.
Amen.
Are
you for that stove? For that stove? For that stove? Yom Kema, so
for that stove, for that stove, for that stove. Baba Kema,
Thank you, everybody.
But he lives on what? What is going on?
No. I mean, they're serious that come. He got them into the partnership. I mean, yeah. Really? I don't know from them. I know his father kids are. I only saw once. His father's
Yeah. Wow. He was. You're gonna whatever you want. No, I'm saying take whatever you want. Sundays. No, I'm saying it's not. Go ahead. What was that? It was that. Something there. If you want, if you're not, whatever, you can keep whatever you want. I don't want to.
Yeah. Back in Philly, David, late in the 90s, told him, why don't you come and say something? And he was quiet.
You want to put the bagels in? You want? I'm going to. Wait, 1 second before you pick. Whatever, it doesn't matter. It's enough.
This is Avenue M.
Avenue M.
This looks like Avenue M. Still a chicken egg.
Nice. Very nice.
All right, I see you.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Oh, you know, let's come out here. Give it to David. David. Good to go. We're leaving if you want to lock the door, okay?
Okay.
What is this? This is crap.
Making it happen. Which shirt? This one, and another one. 30%. Yeah. Thank you, Mrs. Genut. You see that?
Yeah. You're so true. Is that? Are those folding chairs ours? No, it's the men's. What are you doing? So cold. You have to go take a shower. Put your stuff in your briefcase and look. Who bought those bagels? Who bought them? You were good? Bought them. Men. Like that? I didn't cook. They're frozen. Frozen. What's all the crap? We're gonna clean it up. That's our job. Where did the sodas go? Over here? Over. Go take a shower. Where's that? Or someone. I don't know. No. No. 11. I get 2 minutes. Ellie, let's go now. I have a huge cleanup job downstairs. What? More important to you got a good night of sleep. Let's go. No, you had a nap. Let's go. 5 minutes. Get into the shower. Get in now. Get to go. Go. Okay. Yeah, man. Now, who's in the office? Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Who's in the office? Did he left? When? You mean you don't know?